Hey everybody, this is Hector here with Faith and Fandom, and here today to discuss with you the crazy shenanigans that somehow ended up with me being at San Diego Comic Con. I have notes. By the way, this is my Legend of Zelda journal that I write all of the notes for Faith and Fandom in here. So all the notes of what will be in a book, won't be in a book. If you ever want to see it, it's this current journal. Before that, I had an Iron Man journal somebody gave me. Thank you, JP. Really excited about this. So I'm just going to crack in and jump right in. So here's the rundown of how I ended up in the magical land of San Diego, where for some blessed reason, it's 75 flipping degrees in the middle of July. Hey, for some reason, it's 75 degrees in the middle of July in San Diego, and I don't think I was prepared for that. Not that I'm complaining. I just wasn't ready because I'm used to being in the lower portions of North Carolina where it's, I have a lot of Funkos, thank you for asking, about 75. I'm used to being in North Carolina where it's like the sweltering armpit of hell during the summer. And it was my first time on the East Coast, or the West Coast, during the summer. And it was flippin' beautiful. Let's just say that. So high five to all of you people who live on the West Coast and the joyous weather you get in the middle of the summer. Good for you. Just good for you. Couple things just wanted to hit with how I ended up there. Long story short, it had nothing to do with me other than the fact that I did these books and made them. But there was a dude named Joe Queen who initially made contact on my behalf. He's part of the Geeky Guys and God, or wait, hold on, words with a lot of G's. Geeky Guys and Gals for God out of California, San Diego area. There's also a branch in the OC run by my friend Stephen Fromm. And they've been using my books for a while for different materials and study guides. And here's one of the things. If you've ever used my books and you like my books, I always have no problem sharing. Janine is awesome. And Janine also was part of making this journey a big process, or a big possibility. Anytime I'm doing these books, it's always my goal that they be a resource. And so if you ever have a group, a small group, a youth group, a college group, a single vegans group, I don't know if that's a thing, but if you have a group that wants to use the Faith and Fandom books, just let me know. And I will absolutely let you have free access to all the PDFs that you can share amongst your groups. You can shop, edit, do whatever you want with. But I always want to make the books available for people to use them. My friend Lance Horn had done something similar, and he ended up making a 12-week study guide for books 1 through 4, and those have been immeasurably helpful. And I'm grateful for everything that has happened with the books because of that, and what Lance has done and all of those things. But for future reference, if you have a group and you want them to be a part of using Faith and Fandom for study material, just shoot me an email, faithandfandom@gmail.com, all lowercase, no spaces. Do that. Shoot me an email, and I will totally send you PDFs for all the books for you to use. But anyway, Joe had read my books, and their group had used our books for a number of times, and Joe believed that I would be an asset to what they were doing in San Diego. And the Christian Comic Art Society has been running panels at San Diego for over 22 years now. And, they have different people that work on different arenas that usually end up at these panels. And, not just Christians, but people of different faiths in different areas. And he thought I would be an asset to it, and he presented it to his group, and he presented it to CCAS, who agreed to have me out, and he did this, with that, but he also knows that these books don't make me any money, and that I don't have resources. I am not a jet setter. There's a reason why I do cons in the North Carolina region, because I can drive. And he knew that it would not be easy for me just to hop on a plane and hop out. And so people from his group that were extremely generous helped fly me out, house me, make this possible on top of that. And so I just want to say, if I haven't made it clear and there's been any this was not me just, I've achieved some rock star status and people, just paid my dues. It wasn't that kind of situation. This happened because of, I will say, I worked hard to do these things, but it was because other people have read them, have used them, have believed in them, that made all this possible. And so big and loud and Facebook Live and on our podcasts and all the other places this is currently going, thank you so much to Christian Comic Art Society, to Joe, to Josh, to Janine, to Ralph, to all the people from Christian Comic Art Society and Geeky Guys and Gals for God out of California for helping make this possible. So just want to talk about some of the things that hit me hardest and mattered to me most about San Diego. And I'm a sucker for sentimentality. As you can see, I like things to hold on to. I'm not a material person unless it really boils down to I have an emotional or mental attachment to it. And so I'm a sentimental person over just that capacity. But so I'd say one of the biggest things for me was this becoming real when it was actually happening. Because for the record, I straight up did not believe this was going to happen for the longest time. Joe hit me up, and here's the thing, Joe has always been reliable and trustworthy, and I've never doubted this dude and what he's doing. But when he hit me up, I get a Facebook inbox saying, hey, we want to send you to California. Okay, do you also have a prince in South Africa that wants to deposit $3 million in my bank account? Because those things sound equally pliable. Those things sound on the same level. Someone telling me you want to send me to San Diego Comic-Con and a prince in Africa who's desperate need to get into my bank account sound like equally believable. And, he hit me up and I'm just like, okay, sure, this is really happening. Wink. But real talk, it was a thing. He was serious, and his people worked it out. And so it was really hard for me to believe, even up until the point I was getting on a plane, that this was actually happening. And I think the moment it was really starting to hit home, the moment it became the most real, was after, I arrived on Thursday, and Josh Cole, who housed me for the event, drove me by the convention center, and I got to see just the outside of the insanity that this Comic-Con was. And I was blown away just by the outside, let alone what was actually happening on the inside. I was blown away by the outside. And, I took that in. We went home. We ate. Got dressed, got ready, because it was going to be a long day, because my first day officially at the show was going to start at 6:30 in the morning. And I was going to be there for 14 hours. So I needed a rest. Between flying across the country, time zone changes, I needed some sleep. So that first morning, got dropped off, and I don't know, I was like 9 or 10 city blocks away from the convention center, and I walked. And so my first morning there, I'm just catching Pokemon, walking through San Diego, seeing this thing get larger and larger. I cross the streets, go in there, go through all the lines and everything, and I walk in and hand them my little printed out ticket. And dude, when they gave me the badge, ooh, I straight didn't want to take it off. And they gave me the badge, and It was my name on it, and it said professional, and it was at San Diego. Now, for the record, there's just beyond being at San Diego, there is another sentimental moment in this because I've never had a badge that said professional before. Not that I've not been a professional on certain levels, because if you get paid for something, you're professional, and sort of that counts. But I've had accolades. I've had things that actually worked out. Being an Amazon bestseller. The fact that I haven't died doing this yet. That cons have brought me on as guests. Those are things that are like milestones. But seeing my first professional badge, that was a doozy. The fact that my first professional badge was at San Diego literally just floored me. And I got my badge, and it came in this cool box that looks like an Aerosmith font and had a metal button. All these things. And I just sat there. I got my stuff and I sat there, and that's when it became really real. And when all my anxiety of the travel and all my anxiety about the pressure of everything else, that just kind of dropped. When I finally sat down, I had my badge in place. I was like, okay, everything else is cool. Let's get to work. And that was just a moment. And then the other super duper real moment was that same night, walked into the room where my first panel was going to be. And but it was even before I made it into the room. Standing in the hallway, conversing with some of the folks that are going to be on the panel. I just met Mario and some other folks that were out there. And a worker from San Diego Comic-Con walked out and said, we just need to check the names in case we need to fix the cards. And the first time that dude shuffled a thing and it had Hector Mirai on the official San Diego little tabletop card thing, that was great. But then it was like, at that moment, I was like, all the hype was gone. Like, not that I wasn't excited, but I was like, okay, I'm over the hype stuff. Let's get to business. And the first panel was really great. Just getting to talk to people about what we do, and do some trivia stuff, and just answer some questions, and then just getting to talk to people and getting to network and meet people. That was great. Then our second panel on Saturday night. Now, before we get to Saturday night, Saturday we got to do a cool thing. Geeky guys / gals passed out 1,000 bottles of water to con attenders, just as a way to be an encouragement, to be a blessing. And that's one of the things is like, people take advantage of any time people are assembled in this great of a number. And people take advantage anytime you assemble people for their own purposes. So, while we're there, Westboro, or maybe it's not Westboro, it's Westboro-ish people, are out there being hateful, screaming at people, chewing people out, and not just being like, you're going to hell stuff, like, you're a loser, stop living in your mom's basement. I mean, they were just abusive. So over here, you've got your Westboro folks destroying people. Then, literally, on this side, you have hundreds of anti-vaxxer folks in like V for Vendetta masks and Guy Fawkes masks. So over here, you've got Westboro people screaming for an agenda. You've got anti-vax people over here colorfully dressed for an agenda. You've got people that were there for different stuff to get different things. And just to be able to be a part of doing something to just love people without an agenda, without a purpose. We just wanted to love on people, and that they do this every year. And they just pass out water bottles and be kind to people. And that's one of the things, people are so used to being abused or taken advantage of, or have someone trying to get something from them, that they don't want to listen when someone says, hey, would you like some free water? And usually what it would take is, hey, would you like an ice cold water? And then they'd walk about 3 feet. Wait, is it for free for real? they take a step back and get the water. And, the crazy thing is we passed out 1,000 bottles in 20 minutes, roughly. 1,000 bottles of water were gone in 20 minutes. And it was just great to watch, and it was super encouraging, and it was super glad to be a part of that. And then, people would come back by and say, like, hey, you're doing some really great stuff just in doing that. So I appreciated the practical aspect of being able to love folks in that capacity. Because, y'all, it makes a difference. And people should always be free to assemble and gather and celebrate without people taking advantage of it, and without being there for an agenda or to manipulate a situation. And so just being able to love some folks in that capacity, in that place, really was a great situation. So that was our Saturday. And then Saturday night, I was a part of a spiritual themes and comics panel. And it was a panel of folks from all different faith or not faith backgrounds. We had a YouTube or an internet YouTube influencer named Goldie, who I had met because she started following my Instagram, and we chatted. You had folks from Diablo Press. You had folks of different walks and opinions, and we sat around for a room full of people discussing the spiritual themes in comics and the MCU. And, we talked about everything from Bucky to Lord of the Rings to, Doctor Who, to all these different things. And just to have the discussion that there is depth and bigger things than just obvious plot lines and the entertainment we enjoy. And I think those are really cool ways to kickstart serious conversations. And I'm grateful that the Christian Comic Art Society doesn't just present like a singular discussion. They bring people of all different backgrounds to get involved in the conversation, and that's wonderful. Because it makes a big difference. And I've seen that as well. Will Rose, who is in my region in Raleigh, he does similar things, and it's meaningful and it's purposeful, and so I'm excited about that. And then Sunday morning came, and we got to do the open meeting. Now, normally, from what I think I've been told in the past, it had basically been a full church service. There was an issue last year with music or something, and that's not important. But bottom line, we got to have a meeting where we openly discussed faith concepts without any hindrances. But you still want to be mindful of people in the room that may not believe what you believe, or think like you think, or speak like you speak. So it makes a big difference to actually be listening and to be attentive and to be considerate in those areas. But we got to have that discussion, and literally, I've got my dude Mario over here beside me, who makes a really cool graphic novel that merges like Star Wars and Paul's epistles. Super dope. Then you've got me. You've got a lady that was beside me that she casts actors, and she's an actress herself, and she encourages people in that community and how to actually make good choices that affect them spiritually. And beside her was the dude who drew the Action Bible, who's worked on actual Marvel and DC things like that. But this dude named Sergio, who drew the Action Bible. And then you've got Luis, and you've got all the folks that are on this panel, and we're just actually getting to openly discuss not just what we believe, but how it impacts our art, how it impacts our work, how it impacts our community and our culture, and the things we need to do. One of my favorite questions that was actually presented in there is like, what do we do to stop doing an us versus them mentality? Or one of the questions that Kyle, our moderator, asked was, why is there a perception that Christian entertainment is always weaker or lame or like a cheap knockoff? Because in reality, that's what it actually looks like. That we do weaker or lamer things that are simply imitations. And we have to be better than that. And we talked about actually creating good content and creating things that matter, and that things that actually are important. And, you know, there are people there that didn't think like we thought, believe like we believe, but we actually got to be a part of the conversation, and that was important. And to be able to be up there and do that was to have that, and for those folks to actually believe in me enough to make that a possibility was a really big deal. So that's kind of the summary of what we did as far as our panels. That's kind of the summary of the things that we did as far as what was important and why they brought me out there for those reasons. And I gotta say, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I wouldn't have missed that opportunity for anything, because, you know, I got to be a part of something bigger. And not just that it's the big show, not that it's just the big Comic-Con, but it's actually a big responsibility and opportunity for someone to say, we believe that you're valuable enough to actually bring you to be a part of this. And one of the things that I was told is like, somebody said, we got to get you out here next year. We can't do this without you. And, automatically reject that, because obviously you can do it without me, because you've been doing it without me for years. But just that they think it's valuable enough that I was a part of it was pretty cool to me. Another thing that I thought was really neat is that they do a masquerade ball play thing. And that I've seen my friends post about on Facebook. I've seen them actually discuss, but I didn't know what it was. And straight up, people spend months and months preparing this masquerade ball deal that takes place, on Saturday night, where people are seeing like a 2-minute sketch where costumes have been made and things have been done just to show off. And there's awards and things like that, but these are really the people that just love this culture and this nerdy stuff enough to spend, like, for instance, Joe, who I've spoke up before, he spent 6 months building a Thor Ragnarok costume, like the Hulk from Thor Ragnarok. He spent 6 months building that costume for legit like a 2-minute sketch. And yeah, it was broadcast. It was on their channels. People watched it and all these things. But like, that's dedication. And that, it was really nice just to see someone actually love their craft enough to be involved in that and do it. Another cool situation was that I had absolutely no desire to make it to Hall H. If you're familiar with how Comic-Con works, Hall H is where all the magic happens, all the celebrities are, all the big stuff goes down. Hall H is where Marvel announced their whole slate of movies for the next year. Hall H is where people give their interviews. Hall H is where all the biggest news takes place. Hall H is the place to go. And you have to wait in line for hours and hours and camp out the night before and all these things. And while I was there, I legit had no desire to be in Hall H. I think I was past that whole deal of like, I just need to be where celebrities are, or I need to do that. I think the last one I really wanted to get out of my system in that capacity was Peter Capaldi. And when I met him last year, I'm good. But being 5-10 feet of concrete away from Natalie Portman or Tom Cruise or Marsala Ali or the cast of the Avengers or anything else like that, being a wall between us was cool and all, but it just didn't matter to me, because legit I was totally satisfied in being there to do my job and what I was brought out there for, which was to actually share my faith and my books and my heart and my purpose and what I was there for. So I legitimately had not a single desire to make it in there where the celebrities were, and that was encouraging to me, that I was more excited about actually getting to do what I was brought there for than doing that. One person I did go meet was Brett from Cyanide and Happiness, who my friend Chris Poirier, jeez, dude, I've known you so long and I still can't say your name right. My friend Chris wanted us to meet, and Cyanide and Happiness, if you've seen, it's the comic strip that's on Facebook and Instagram and all these things. And they also just put out a new board game or a card game. But just getting to talk to Brett about the role of ministry in Comic Con culture, and somebody that's actually working in mainstream successful geek culture, and just that role of ministry and how important that stuff is. That was really neat to be able to do that and talk to him. Yeah, so that was a lot of it. Monday, the day after everything was over, I legit just did laundry and mailed stuff, and then got on my plane and came home. It was neat. The whole experience was great. One of the things that I can't express enough is that it's just bigger than you think. I think I mentioned this like on one of my recaps from the day, but it's just straight up bigger than you think it is. When you feel like you've reached the end, you just look over and it's twice as long. If you ever played the original Legend of Zelda, you in the Enchanted Forest or the Mysterious Woods or whatever it is, when you go down and you think you're going into a new map, and then the map just repeats itself. It's that big the whole time. And I think, honestly, my best part of my experience, Santana asked, my best part of my experience was just the reality that I was there and getting to do this. I don't have lofty goals of what's going to happen with Faith and Fandom, and I don't actually view myself as any kind of big deal as a writer, because look, these are some self-published books that are just me sharing my thoughts on faith and nerdiness. This is not blockbuster stuff. So the fact that people thought it was important enough to read, that's a big deal. The fact that people read it and thought it was important enough that my voice be heard in this big arena, and they thought I actually had something to contribute, and that they, I think that's the biggest thing. The fact that they read what I do, cared enough to make me a part of it, and made it happen. I think that was the best part of the experience, is that people looked at what I was doing and thought it had enough value to actually bring me into the discussion. That was the best part of it for me, probably. I sleep in my badge from now on, like it's under my shirt right now. I've showered in it. Just kidding. But really, that's a highlight, just to be able to be considered that my stuff has enough value to be involved. So, yeah, it is overwhelming though. It is not all cupcakes and rainbows. It is a metric ton of walking. Like I said, Friday, my day one, I was on my feet for 14 hours, and I was super tired. And on the flight home, I did not sleep Monday at all on the flight home, just because my feet hurt. I straight up could not sleep because the one bone on the outside of my mutant platypus feet just ached. And I could not rest comfortably because of that one bone on my foot. So there was a ton of walking. And that's fine. It was great. I had so many good experiences. And that's one of the cool things about San Diego, beyond just everything that's in the building. So just for clarification, if you've ever been to Dragon Con, which is what this shirt is from, Kristen asked earlier. This shirt is from Dragon Con. It's my favorite Dragon Con shirt. Dragon Con is spread out between 5 and 7 convention centers across downtown Atlanta. Take everything that's spread out across the entire city of Atlanta and put it in one building, and that's San Diego. But then you take it, and all across town, all the big companies have set up free activities that you don't have to be a part of the Comic-Con to actually go to, all across town that you get to be a part of. So there's a full Fox Sunday Domination animation thing where there's carnival games over here, and it's totally free to the public. Over here, The Walking Dead have done an experience. Over here, Amazon has done an experience. Over here, there's a Shazam carnival, the Philadelphia festival that they had in Shazam. Over here is Rhine City from Detective Pikachu. There's a Rick and Morty thing. There is a Nickelodeon thing with a SpongeBob Village. There was a Watchmen thing where you get to watch yourself be ripped apart like Dr. Manhattan. All that stuff is scattered all across downtown, and it's free. So that's one of the coolest things, is that San Diego doesn't just take over the convention center, it takes over the entire town. And then when it not only takes over the town, I'm not just talking the buildings, but listen, the buildings were postered or covered with advertisements for nerdy stuff. So if you are not a geek, if you are a straight up muggle, it must be miserable to live in Southern California during the month of July. It must be atrocious. If you just are not a person that can celebrate what other people celebrate, I pity you for living in that area at that time. My Uber driver on the way to the airport was a muggle who did not enjoy any of that stuff, and she said she would not even go downtown if she could avoid it during Comic-Con because she hated it. Sorry for y'all. But it was really neat how much and how large it spread out across everything. So, I love that y'all, even the trains and the buses were covered. Muggle's a loose term. Obviously, I'm not talking about wizards and witchcraft, but I think muggle is the most appropriate term for someone who just cannot tolerate geekiness. That's just where I land with that. But, so yeah, the trains, the buses, everything is plastered. And, good for a city to be able to bring that kind of economy and advertising and to embrace that, because I want to have a support system in my life that looks like how San Diego actually supports their Comic-Con. Because they support their Comic-Con as a city like nowhere else I've ever seen. So, that was one of the best parts. And honestly, some of the people I met there were some of the most encouraging and my favorite things from the experience. Just Steven and Mario and Janine and all the people that actually were just super encouraging, and the folks that I got to talk to in that capacity, and people telling me they wanted me to be at other shows on the West Coast. Like there's a Comic-Con in September called Alpha Omega Con, and that they wanted me out there for that. And, I'm already hearing, come back. So that was just a super cool experience. I haven't unpacked my suitcase because I legit leave in 7 hours for another show. So I was home for roughly 38 hours before I leave again for another show. So I'm going to wash maybe a couple pairs of socks and get back on the road. But that was life, and that was the show. And I had an absolute blast with it. It was a complete honor to be a part of it, to share in that experience, and I will treasure that for the rest of my life, and for the opportunity to be able to do that. So I'm gonna say it again to Joe, to Josh, to Janine, to Steven, for hanging out with me for 4 hours in the Nintendo line and dealing with people that were cutting in line, and for narking on the people that cut in line, so we ended up with more free stuff. I appreciated everybody that I got to get involved with, for the experience in general, and just to be able to say that I was there. And it was really cool also to run into more North Carolina people, artists that I'm familiar with here that did X Leafields and junior high horrors, and my friends that are involved in that stuff. Just to be able to be sitting there, and my home crew, the same people I see at Comic-Cons here, were there. And y'all, for all the people that, I'll say this: if you were celebrating me going and doing this, I'm celebrating you for celebrating me in this process, because it was a big deal, and I'm grateful that you actually are happy for me. Scripture tells us we're supposed to rejoice with those who rejoice. So, if you know me, I don't get excited about things until they're literally happening. I can't get excited about stuff when there are logistics between me and it. I actually have to get to a place where everything's done and smoothed out. I think the first time I felt real excitement about this experience was when I was on the escalator going to get my badge. I don't think I had any actual excitement. The rest was, I gotta get here, I've gotta get here, I've gotta do this. It was like checklists. And then, I legit remember I was on the escalator on my way to get my badge when the wave of excitement hit me. Like, this is happening! So for all the people who were excited for me before I actually got excited, thank you. For all the people that celebrated me, for all the people that celebrated this opportunity and what God was doing with that, for my church, for holding it down, for knowing I'd already been gone like a ton this summer, and then when I'm given this opportunity, not giving me any grief or complaints or arguments or anything like that, knowing that I'm going to be gone another 5 days because you understood this was a huge opportunity and experience. Thank you. I missed my family, I missed my church, all of these things, but I may never have this opportunity again. So for everybody that was a part of that, thank you for being a part of that. And yeah, I don't really have any other big stuff to say other than, it was nice to actually be at the place that all the news was coming from, because, I was there when they announced the Marvel lineup. I was there when they announced trailers for things coming out. It was cool to be at the same source. And I also didn't realize that the Eisners, the comic book awards, took place the same week as San Diego. Don't think that ever dawned on me before, but it was really neat to be there when Tom King, who's one of my favorite Batman writers, won a bunch of Eisner Awards, and then, he's on the floor the next day at the show. That was super cool. It was cool to walk around and see the cast of the Doom Patrol, or to that DC Universe as a company gave us free stuff for being subscribers. I mean, there's a lot of cool to it. And somebody asked me today, how does it feel like to go back to doing normal cons at home after seeing that? And I'm like, it's not like those shows are less special or anything like that. But there is a difference. There's a distinction. San Diego recently sued people in a general capacity for the name of Comic-Con, where they're saying, we're Comic-Con, you're not Comic-Con. You might be a comic book convention, but we're Comic-Con. And, I think that's one of the things that I actually took away from it. I was like, okay, you're Comic-Con. This is the Comic-Con. And, I get why they would want to say, this is our experience. We crafted this. We've been doing it 50 years. It's a long time to be able to say, this is ours and we built it. And they built something great. And the whole world is emulating it now. And, I'm about to go to a show tomorrow, and it's going to be hard not to compare it, but I'm going to say this, but, what I do isn't about the level of success or adoration or, achievement. What I do is relating to people on a one-on-one, me and you at a booth conversation, and you taking these books home, and they actually affecting you later in your life. So for me, a little show in a mall might be a bigger deal than me being at San Diego talking at a panel. But, so I'm not going to look down on any show because it's smaller, because it affords great opportunities. But I can say I am going to be forever grateful for the opportunity I've had in this. So once again, for everyone that was a part of the journey from 2013, when I first started talking about doing these books, to the books being released and the podcasts and all these things, thanks for being a part of the journey. Thanks for supporting. Thanks for encouraging. If you aren't checking out our podcast, it's Faith and Fandom at Podbean. So faithandfandom.podbean.com or something like that. But if you look up Faith and Fandom and Podbean, you'll find it. And I'll be this weekend at GalaxyCon in Raleigh. And Saturday night at 8:15 p.m., I have a panel on Faith and Fandom where we're going to discuss spiritual themes and how it affects what we are entertained by and the things we enjoy, and how we can actually be encouraged by our entertainment. It's an open discussion for everyone, regardless of what you believe. And then Sunday morning, we're having Geek Church, full-blown Sunday morning worship service. I'm going to teach, and we're going to have music, and we're going to do all these things, and that's going to be at 10:15 a.m. at GalaxyCon as well this Sunday. And then, you ready? You know what's next? Nothing. After GalaxyCon this weekend, I am done with overnight conventions until October. Yes. Yes. That's a thing. I'll be home, or I'll at least be local. So I'm excited for the break and some time with my crew. So I'm going to dip off of here. And I just want to say thank you again for the millionth time for everyone that made this possible and for everyone that supported and encouraged this process. And good night.